Hi, it's Allie with Seattle Coffee Gear, and today we're reviewing the Acaia Pearl S. This is their newest update to the traditional Pearl model. Essentially, they have added some features inside, but they've kept the classic look. It does have a little bit different weight to it. It's a little bit heavier. Obviously, they have also changed, this is a cool thing, I think. They've changed the heat pad that they usually have. They've changed it to this round circular one. So if you notice, it's actually the right size for most of your brewing equipment. It's gonna fit right on there. So we're gonna go through some of the features. We'll go a little in depth for some of the newer ones, and we'll just kind of briefly overview the ones that have stayed the same. So our first function is going to be the classic weight mode. You see to the 10th of a gram, that's the same. And they've also changed that font there, so that's new and fun. So we have our classic bean weighing mode. The next one is going to be also something that's similar to the version before. It's going to have the time and the weight, but you'll notice they've actually added to the 10th of a gram, so you can kind of have that more as a useful thing, which is really helpful. So the next mode looks a lot like what you saw in the first mode, but they've actually added something a little bit different to this. That little dot on the side is actually an auto tear function, which you can use for your portafilter. It weighs it and tears it and remembers that weight for 30 seconds. So you can actually go over here, add your coffee. Oops, wrong button. Come back and weigh it. Obviously I didn't put enough for espresso shot, but that's really useful because if you're weighing your shots consistently, that is useful for you keeping things in line. And then they also have another feature similar to that in the next mode here. Tear that out. It's still gonna auto tear, but this time it's gonna work for your espresso. That way, whenever it starts to pour the water, like I will show you and demonstrate here, auto tears, so that would be your shot glass. Start to pour the water in. It's gonna start to count up. So that's really nice because a lot of people like to use these scales for espresso as well. That's awesome that it actually stopped. I didn't realize that it did that. That's pretty cool. So that's going to be really useful for when you're trying to do not just brewing, but also espresso. You can kind of use that feature as a supplement. Only downside I would say is that this is going to be hard to fit under most home machines. This whole scale is a little awkward. You might be able to maneuver it that way, but obviously that's why they have the lunar scale, so you can kind of use that one specifically for espresso if that's the intent. Now, this is another new feature here. This is the flow rate mode. So we have the time, the weight, and the current flow rate indicator here. So this is going to actually help you keep track of how quickly you're pouring or how slowly you're pouring and how consistent you are. Essentially, that's going to help you make a better cup of coffee, be more consistent. If you're in a cafe, it's going to help you train your baristas to be to the next caliber, which is really useful and effective. We also have the practice flow rate mode here. So this is where you can kind of show off like how consistent you are able to pour. So let's take this back here. So right here, you're gonna see the current weight, and then right here, you're gonna see the stability of that. So right now I'm pouring at a rate of roughly 6. Obviously I need a little bit more practice. So if I do more, it's going to go up. If I do less, it's gonna go down. But you get the idea. So that's gonna help you pour more consistent cups of coffee and is a good tool to have just while you're learning. And the other thing that they've added to this scale is they have a new app called the Brew Guide app, which you can actually upload a recipe to the scale and have it step-by-step walk you through. Now, if you'll see here, I have made us a Make a V60 You Love, a Seattle Coffee Gear recipe for V60. So I have gone ahead and programmed all of this to tell you exactly how I like to make my pour overs. It's a pretty good general recipe, so you can try it out and see what you think. But really easy, all you have to do is upload it to the Pearl, and then it's going to connect. And then you'll see that red dot, that means it's connected. And then when it starts to download, you'll see a little arrow pop up as well. Perfect. Takes a few seconds there. Now, you can only save one recipe on your scale at a time, but for most people that'll work out just fine because you can just upload another one whenever you're ready. And you have a few pre-starter recipes in there as well. They have like a Kalita recipe, things like that. So you can kind of operate off of that to try it out. Or you can try our recipe. You can actually share it by going to up here at the top, and then you can hit share and like text it to someone or hit QR code and save it. So you can scan it and try it on your scale at home. So basically I've set this up already to kind of do everything we need. Go ahead and save this here. Now I'm gonna, it's going to tell me to measure out my coffee. So I'm gonna go ahead and grind some here. Now I have uploaded this recipe to have 20 grams of coffee, so it's reminding me to pre-measure that out. And then when I'm ready to go to the next step, hit this one here. Hello. It's kind of like a long hold. And then so now I'm going to measure out 20 grams. I've already pre-wetted my filter. Awesome. So once it's at 20 grams, it's gonna give me a few seconds to kind of make sure that that's what I need. And then it's gonna flash to tell me that we're ready to move on. So next thing we're gonna do is pour our bloom, and it tells me to pour 40 grams of water. It's gonna give me a few seconds to do that. Kind of go in slow little circles here, but I wanna try to cover as much of the ground coffee as I can. And then it beeps to let me know when I've reached my target weight. And then it's gonna sit for a few seconds while it blooms, and you can enjoy kind of watching your coffee, let all the oils come to the surface, bubble up. I actually really like to smell it at this point, because that's when when you wake up in the morning, that's your first smell of coffee, you're pretty excited, or if you smell it when you grind it. So it's telling me to wait a few seconds, and then I'm gonna prep, because I know we're gonna go right back into pouring. This recipe that I have made is actually a pulse pour method. So there are less complicated ways to make a pour over, of course, but I really wanted to show off the features of this brew guide and why it would be useful to have it. Another thing too is when you're in a coffee shop, you're trying to have consistency as much as possible. So you can train your baristas like I was trained. You say, this is the recipe. But when you're in a rush, or it's your first few weeks of working in a coffee shop, you're probably gonna forget what the recipe is. So this is a nice way to train them and make sure that it's consistent every time, have reminders. You can even put in text that says, like, at this point, we're just waiting for the coffee to bloom, right? So look up, engage with your customer, see what they're doing, tell them about this coffee and why you're brewing it the way that you are. Go into my next pour here. I get very focused when I brew coffee, so forgive me if I am making weird faces. Perfect, but yeah, you also notice, so I have used the flow rate mode here, so that's my target weight. This is the actual weight, so I went about 4 grams over, and this is the time. Now wait another few seconds to let that coffee drip, and then we're gonna go into our third and final pour. It's looking really good, actually. Pretty even, which is impressive. The fellow kettle helps with that a good bit, because usually I am not that talented at pouring evenly. I need to practice on the flow rate mode. Awesome. I gave myself an allotted amount of time to pour, so you're not going too slow, you're not going too fast. That's kind of how I regulate myself. I know I have this much time to pour this much coffee, this much water. And then it will tell me now I have a few seconds to wait while it drips. I've got my cup here prepared to taste this awesome coffee. And this grinder that I have set up, I have it set up on my Rocky here at about a 30 gram, on the setting 30. Obviously I need some more coffee. So it's not going to take as long to drip down as the other grinder that I was using, because I think I had it on a little bit of a finer grind. But typically you can be okay in that range. You just know, if you walk away, it'll beep and let you know when your coffee is done dripping. But pretty even brew bed if you pay attention to that sort of thing. And then whenever it's done dripping, I also wrote a cute little message, which you are also able to do. Pour myself some while we wait. Today we were brewing one of my favorite drip coffees, actually. This is Espresso Republic's LA Traffic. It's nice and chocolatey. It's really good as drip. Yeah, it's definitely very rich. It's almost got like a woodsy flavor to it, but not as woodsy as some of like the tobacco notes or something like that. But it's the licorice, I think, is what's popping out. I think that's the notes. Yeah, so chocolate, licorice, and toffee. They're pretty cool. They've recently changed their packaging, which I kind of enjoy. So after your coffee's done brewing, it'll say coffee is ready, and then I added a little smiley face at the end, because that's pretty cool. And then you're done. You can click out of here. It goes back to your normal function. Or if you want to get back into it, say you've got another pour over right behind that, just hold down that button and you're back in your brew guide. Perfect. So double tap to get out of that, and then double tap if you're going to turn it off. So yeah, this has been a review of the Acaia Pearl S. Obviously, it's a very in-depth scale, so this is a good thing to use if you're a little bit more advanced user for coffee, or if you want to take your game up to the next level. And that espresso function's nice too if you kind of want to have a scale that you can use for both, or you're a coffee shop and you don't want to have all these scales lying around. It's a good one to use. What questions do you have about it? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Cheers.